I'd like to call this Public Safety Funding Ad Hoc Committee meeting to order, August the 2nd, 2023, 5:35 p.m. Roll call, please, Mr. Clerk.
Commissioner Epperson.
Present.
Commissioner Young.
Here.
Commissioner Coffin.
Here.
Commissioner Chavez.
Here.
Commissioner DeJohnson.
Present.
Commissioner Atkins. Here. And Commissioners Jackson and Burrell appear to be absent. So you do have 6 present, 2 absent. That does constitute a quorum.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to ask Commissioner Watts to lead us in the invocation, and I will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Let's all stand, please. And the gentleman that has the caps on, please uncover.
Thank you. Let us pray. God, how we come humbly before your throne of grace and mercy, Lord. Thanking you, Father God, for this day that you have given unto us. God, we invoke your presence on this evening. Lord, we invite you into this atmosphere. God, we pray that you will give us the guidance and wisdom for the best decisions of the citizens of Caddo Parish. Lord, we thank you, God, for all of those who did survive the storm. And we ask you, Father God, to keep us safe during this heat wave. It is in Jesus Christ's name that we pray. Amen.
Let's all turn, face the flag. I would ask that all military and veterans would render the standard hand to brow salute. All others, right hand across your heart. And as we present the Pledge of Allegiance, please remember our POWs and MIAs. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Ms. Clerk.
Okay, that brings us to agenda additions. I'm not aware of any agenda additions today unless you have any, Mr. Chairman.
No, sir.
Okay, we'll move forward to public comments. We do have a public comment box here if people would like to sign up, though I understand in your agenda you do have a question and answer period. Would you like me to see if there are public comments at this time, or would you like to hold them
I had
for
some
that?
calls relative to public comments, and I told them they would be afforded the opportunity to do so. So if there's anyone in the audience that would like to render public comment relative to the business of this meeting, please come up and do so now. And we'll get the card filled out later. And when you come up, please state your name and address for the records. And at this particular time, we won't be entertaining questions back and forth with you, because this is an informational meeting, and we have some forms where we can we'd like for you to fill out if you have further information, and we're going to have a section at the end of the meeting where you can have some questions and some answers from some of our presenters. Yes, sir.
David Young, 17 Lake Forest Hills, Shreveport, Louisiana,
Okay, and you'll have 3 minutes, sir.
representing the Homeowners Association, Lake Forest Hills Homeowners Association. I have Orlando and Tiffany Green back here, and Chad and Rachel going. And I guess it's concerns about HOA's response and recovery assistance from the parish compared to the others. We were devastated by the storm. So I called, we had visits from the sheriff's office, the EMS and state agency. We were assured our roads were blocked. 2 out of our 3 roads were blocked way beyond the capacity of our ability to clear. We had visits from the sheriff's department, EMS, state. They knew that we had problems, and they assured us that we were on a list to get our streets cleaned and such. I called Monday morning, and there was no record of any work order or anything, but thank goodness, I guess it was because the people of our community kind of looked to me to take care of it. It's 28 homes, it's the end of Jewella on Cross Lake. And the highway department did come out and clear our trees. What my concern is our recovery services. The parish is picking up debris from the streets throughout the parish, but they deny us that service because we're a HOA. We pay taxes. We do all this stuff. It's not like it's a private residence, it's a community, and we need the support. I called Ken Ward, I called Gary Norman, I was denied by both. I started an email chain with Ken and other high-ranking people in the parish, and was told the only service we could go to was Providence House, which made little sense. So since my time's limited, I'd like to know if there were other incorporated HOA sorts of communities in the parish that were also denied these services. What is the limitation? I mean, if you need to hold harmless or whatever, what is the limitation for you to come and help us? Both of these folks here are just covered up with trees that we removed. We got to the street, but we can't get any assistance in debris recovery.
I get a motion for extension.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Watts and seconded by Mr. Young. Extend for 1 minute.
Okay. Is there any sort of tracking status from when these parish representatives were in our community on Friday to find out that on Monday there was no job made or anything? And then it was represented in one of the emails that SWEPCO had called to get the trees down. Well, that was me. I called, I was panicked. Some young lady at your office cooked me up with the highway department, and we got that taken care of, and we're grateful. We're grateful for that service because we have two elderly members. We have a member that has congestive heart failure that were behind these trees, the blocked roads. So on the disaster response side, I think we did what we could. My concern is on the recovery side, what services are available to us to help us? Most of us aren't moneyed. We need the same level of support that the citizens of the parish of Caddo have.
All right. Thank you, sir. Madam Administrator, please note, and sir, we are going to have, I'm pretty sure, Public Works Director to come up and give us some information. Also, please remember, we do have some forms we'd like to, for you to pick up and pass out and put your information in detail. And one question before you leave, are you inside the city limits or out?
We're outside the city limits.
Okay, thank you, sir. So noted. Anyone?
Mr. Chairman, can I just make, would you make clear, please, that we can't answer questions in this?
Right, that's what I told him. But I just want that information so we can define between the city and the parish, so we'll make sure that, that's addressed to the appropriate person.
Thanks.
But I did tell them that later on in the meeting, they'd be able to, because we're gonna have some of these people that are gonna speak. Thank you, sir, appreciate it.
Well, I would
Appreciate
appreciate,
it, okay.
I would appreciate, back to me, some list of similar
We're
communities.
we're gonna take care of that. Okay, please don't leave, okay? Anyone else to address the body from the citizens? Okay, if no one else from citizens want to address it, now we'll entertain the individuals that we invited. But before we go into that, I'd like to let you all know that the purpose of this meeting, this is a listening meeting. We want to hear from the citizens. We want to hear from the agencies that was invited. We want to know what they did, not only in the past, the June 16th disaster, but previous, because this is something that has been going on for a long time. I built my first home in West Shreveport in 1981. And some of the same thing that's going on, that was going on then is going on now. So this is a listening meeting. We're going to get information from the various agencies as to what their responses was, what their responsibilities are. They have a 3-minute presentation. And then we have a question and answer session from the audience if you would like to ask a question of any of our participants. And then we're going to summarize and we'll go from there. So at this time, Mr. Chairman, I think you said you had some presentations. I'd like to bring those up first. If you would call up the individuals, the entities, and have them to go forward.
Absolutely. Thank you. I think the most formal presentation is probably from SWEPCO, so maybe it would make sense to start with them. And then I don't know if you would like to just recognize individually or invite
Yes, ma'am.
in what order after that, but there are a number of.
Agent, would you come forward and be after SWEPCO and any other entity that came to share with us today? Once those finished in, you feel free to come up.
Thank you, Commissioners. It's always an honor to be in the chamber. As Jeff Everson and I are used to, if we're in the chamber this late, there's usually pizza or something because the meeting's gone way too long. But happy to be here nonetheless. So I do have a brief presentation. I also have hard copies that I will leave with you at the end of the meeting. So Jeff, how do we start this?
Michelle, are you able to load his presentation from the jump drive onto the projector? And Mike, if you have hard copies, I'll pass them out to the commissioners right now. That's.
Thank you, Michelle. You can go to the next slide. So I want to give a little history leading up to the first storm on June 16th. And I'm going to go back to January of 2023. We've had an extremely wet and warm first 2 quarters of the year. That's allowed trees to develop very dense foliage very early. So that sets us up with a terrible scenario of trees with heavy leaves for spring and summer storms. We began having afternoon storms with wind early in June, and then on June 16th, the first major storm hit the area. And if you look at your map on the second page, this storm actually formed in the panhandle of Oklahoma and held together and strengthened as it passed across North Louisiana and on into Mississippi. There were wind speeds recorded from 80 to 90 miles an hour across Shreveport-Bossier, hence all the tree damage. So, next slide, please. So what did that damage do, and how did it impact SWEPCO and AEP? Starting from left to right on your slide, generation is coal plants, natural gas plants, wind farms, solar facilities, where electricity is generated. And it comes from those plants via transmission lines to substations that we see across the city. This is the first storm in anyone's memory where we have had damage to our transmission lines. And with transmission lines on the ground or out of service, then substations are out of service, and there is literally no power to route anywhere. After substations, electricity goes through the distribution lines that you see in neighborhoods and in streets along the city, and then it comes to our customers, residential and commercial. I gave you the map of the storm because this was really about a 6 or 8 hour event. If we know that a hurricane is coming from the Gulf up our way, or there's an ice storm predicted, we have the ability to kick in our mutual aid agreements and get the cavalry on the way, if you will, to get extra workers coming in, get people from out of state and partner utilities like we have quite often. But we had no notice of this. This developed quickly. It moved quickly. It was upcoming on a holiday weekend, and it took a little while to get extra help here. But we did get them. So next slide, please, Michelle. So what did we see as we were assessing our system? Eventually, just from the June 16th storm, we had 655 transformers damaged that had to be replaced, over 1,200 poles, 1,600 cross arms, 112 substations were offline at some point. We replaced 113 miles of wire. We were able to reuse a lot of wire, but we had to replace 113 miles. And more importantly to this event, 58 transmission lines were down at one point in time. So what did that mean locally? That meant that at one point, all 6 of our major hospitals were offline, and 200,000 customers in Louisiana were offline. Next slide, please. So what we were able to do is very quickly bring in 4,000 utility workers to work alongside SWEPCO's utility workers and AEP transmission utility workers to begin to get the job done. First, we had to assess the lines, and that's everything from driving the line in a truck, if there's space to do that. We used helicopters, we used drones, and in some instances, we had workers walking the path of that line to find where the faults were. During that time, we lodged, did laundry, fed, and counseled 4,000 utility workers for over a week. But we got restoration done. And then, of course, we were visited by another storm exactly 1 month later on July 16th. Damage wasn't as bad. We were able to do that with our own employees, but it was still an inconvenience for our customers. So moving forward, what are we doing? Transmission and distribution resilience and reliability are top of mind for us. We have a 5-year rolling plan for rebuilds of those lines and upgrades. And why do we do it? How do we do it? Part of it is load growth. If we have a line, a transmission line, and there's been a lot of growth in an area, or there's an economic development project that's been announced or is in place, and there needs to be more load capacity to a line, then that bumps up into a rebuild or extra capacity status. We look at reliability, we look at outage history, we look at the age of equipment, and we look at our plans annually. 5-year rolling plan, as projects roll off, we're constantly adding new ones, we're changing the priority. Unfortunately, with the June 16th storm, we had 3 transmission lines in the Shreveport area that were set or are still set to be rebuilt within the next 12 months. We had to hurriedly rebuild them with wooden poles, even though, just down the road in a few months, we'll come back with steel poles. But we had to get the lines in the air and get them operated. Been a lot of questions about forestry and vegetation management. They also have an annual plan that's reviewed toward the fourth quarter of each year. We look at problematic areas. We look at areas that have had damage. We look at areas that we've had complaints from citizens. And then we're also able to do spot trimming and some spraying, largely of vines and vegetation that may be growing on poles. We can do that based on visual inspections as our crews are out there, or customer complaints when they call us and say, hey, there's vines on my pole. The last thing is technology upgrades. Intelligent switching is being worked into our circuits. We have switches now that will recognize a fault, and instead of 1,000 people going out, it will say, we have a fault right here. Let's isolate it, and maybe only 20 people are out, and everybody else is back online. So we're incorporating intelligent switching into our system, and AMI metering that we're asking the Public Service Commission to approve a project where AMI meters, or smart meters as we sometimes call them, would replace everybody's current electric meter. We will instantly know if power is off. We'll instantly know if power is on, and that will provide a lot more tools to the customer to help them manage their electricity usage and manage their bill a little bit better. So that's, in a very quick nutshell, that's a response to the storms that we have, what we did. We held a meeting last Thursday with the Governor's Office of Homeland Security, Caddo and Bossier Homeland Security, and the hospital systems to talk about what went right, what went wrong, and how we can do better planning in the future. And that will roll into a couple of more meetings, I'm sure, over the next quarter. And then in the fall, we're planning a meeting with all of our North Louisiana elected officials to talk about the storms again a little bit, talk about projects that we have on the books for the Northwest Louisiana area, and also be able to answer additional questions. But that's my presentation, and Commissioner, if I need to come back up and answer questions after this, happy to do that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next we'll have Caddo Council on Aging. Name and your organization, please, ma'am.
Hello, everyone. My name is LaPhilia Johnson, and I am with the Aging and Disability Resource Center Program Manager within the Caddo Council on Aging. So I'll go ahead and start. Okay. On behalf of our Executive Director, Monica Wright, I thank you for this opportunity to speak on behalf of our services and issues from the most recent June 16th storm and power outage. During the dates of June 16th to June the 24th, we referred over 22 households to the local food bank. We registered 40 individuals for the 2023 Senior Farmers Market Nutrition Program, which they receive a one-time food card of $50 that helps to buy fruits and vegetables from local farmers. We were able to distribute 58 box fans to seniors ages 60 and older, and we were able to deliver 5,185 meals to our regular seniors on the Meals on Wheels program. Some of the reported issues that we received from our seniors and community partners during the storm was that the community updates were posted online, and seniors stated that they did not have regular internet access and they did not have the text alerts to actually get those emergency updates. They were given information regarding where to pick up food boxes, but a lot of the seniors felt that the younger people would get there before them, and it would just be a waste of their time to even try to go out. Also, we were given information on the cooling centers, but a lot of the seniors did not have transportation to get there. There was a local apartment complex that the residents that were wheelchair bound and bed bound were not able to use the elevators, of course, so they had to call the local fire department to evacuate those individuals. But the problem was, once they were evacuated, there was no transport to actually get them to their emergency destinations. So regular access to food and community transportation is an ongoing issue. And when there's an emergency situation, it's even worse. Yep. Thank you.
At this time, Martha Merrick, Northwest Louisiana Food Bank.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Martha Merrick. I'm the Executive Director of the Food Bank of Northwest Louisiana. And I'm happy to report on the work we did. I feel like our team did a really excellent job in responding to the need. We received, as folks' electricity were turned back on, we heard probably over 200 calls a day of people that needed food to replace their food that was damaged. And so we were happy to partner with organizations in Caddo, Bossier, and DeSoto Parish to help provide food to those folks. Here in Caddo Parish, our largest partner was Common Ground, and I think they probably helped over 100 people a day, which was amazing. And so that was the short term. And then with the generosity of Caddo Parish and commissioners, we did a one-day massive distribution. We distributed over 170,000 pounds of food in one day, with a total of $277,000 in food value. And we feel like we helped about 4,000 households, and if we average 4,000 households with an average of 3 people per household, about 12,000 people receive food in one day. It was an amazing day. We tried to start early before it got really hot, and as many of you learned, distributing food is very taxing because food gets very heavy, those boxes, but the community responded and helped us pack a lot of those food boxes, and we were very grateful for that. And then our partners at SWEPCO helped us too by even helping donate the food that was left over from their food services that even added more to the day and to our citizens of Caddo Parish. So I feel that we did a great job. I'm more than delighted to stay and answer any questions, but it was it was a real privilege to be able to serve the citizens of Caddo Parish and to get them the food that we need. And we were very glad to hear that Disaster SNAP opened up, that what we couldn't provide and what Caddo Parish Commission couldn't help us provide, Disaster SNAP benefits did. So thank you all very much.
Dr. Martha White. Now, before Dr. White come up, we're going to speak a little bit about COVID as part of our public safety issues that arise. Sometimes people get complacent, but there's still some things that's going on we need to know about. And also after Dr. White, I'd like Mr. Kelvin Samuels with our animal mosquito and rodent control to come up and speak relative to the malaria situation. Okay, Dr. White, go ahead.
Hey, good evening. Dr. Martha White with the Office of Public Health. I was asked to come and talk a little bit about COVID. I knew people had a few questions about, they've heard about malaria in Florida, so some basic questions. And really, COVID's a little bit harder to track right now because, so many of us either don't get tested or we test at home. So really, the results that we see when you look at percent positivity, remember we used to always go by how many people are having positive tests. Well, now the people who are going to get tested that we get those results from are people who are sick enough to feel bad and go to the doctor. So of course those percent positivities are going to be higher. We are, however, seeing those climb. So there are more people going to the doctors with complaints of flu-like illness, COVID-like symptoms, and getting tested and being positive. Right now we're at about 15.8% positivity rate. We were sitting around 12% previously. The number of cases in the state that we're seeing are also climbing. So we were seeing about 700 new cases a week. Then it went to about 1,000, 1,200. And this last week, the report I got yesterday was 3,200 cases. So there is an uptick, obviously. It's still Omicron. It's still not putting a whole lot of people in the hospital. The hospitalization rate, 2 weeks ago, there were about 70 people in the hospital on average every day with COVID. This week, it's up to 160. So you are seeing, of course, a climb. It's not anywhere near where we were in the past or where we would have any kind of major concerns about, like, are we going to have a huge surge? But it is something to remember. If you haven't had COVID or if you haven't had this strain that's out there right now, I know you were sick recently, it is causing people pretty significant flu-like illnesses. They're having a lot of muscle aches, high fevers, some GI symptoms, and feeling pretty bad for about 4 to 5 days. And a cough, pretty significant cough. Most of that will resolve except for the cough, and the cough can last a couple of weeks, even longer sometimes, depending on your respiratory status. So just make sure that you are protecting yourselves, you're sleeping well, you're eating well, you're exercising, and that you are, if you're going to have to be in a crowded area, consider wearing a mask, especially if you're high risk. I think we should make masks kind of normalized, and if you're not feeling well, you should put one on to protect the people around you, and if you are at risk, that you feel comfortable wearing one when you're out in public, because it is something that will protect you. Now, malaria cases, good news, we don't have malaria in Louisiana. But people have been hearing about it in the news, and so I've had a lot of questions about, do we have cases in Caddo Parish? No. There's no cases in Louisiana. There are 8 cases that are of concern in the United States. So there's about 2,000 cases every year in the U.S. of malaria, but all of those are caused by travel. So people travel, they go, they come back with malaria. So these cases, however, are not. They're locally acquired. And so that's concerning, because that means that now we have mosquitoes in Florida that are infected with malaria, that are a risk for people getting bitten by them, and then perhaps more people getting malaria. It's very slow. We're not seeing a huge climb in it, but they are watching it. And so that's, I think, what you wanted me to talk to you about.
Okay, we appreciate it.
And we're here in disasters. You know, we do state-run shelters. I'm the medical director for any state-run shelter, whether it's a bus shelter or a medical shelter. I have to make sure that the people there get medical care, and that's by legislation. So that's my responsibility. But I'm also here to help however I can. We have in the past done like tetanus shots for people, you know, a lot of times when you're out doing debris and cleaning up, people who are not up to date on those tetanus shots, it's important to make sure that you get that if you haven't had it in the last 10 years. So we're here if you need us. Thanks.
Thank you. Kevin, we didn't take all your gravy, did we?
No. I can still touch on some stuff too. Thanks, Dr. White. So good afternoon. So like the doctor said, we do not have any known cases of malaria here in the area or Louisiana. But what make this unique, like she was saying, 20 years ago, 2003, Palm Beach, Florida, we had cases that were localized, like she said, meaning 95% comes from Africa, and it's an Anopheles mosquito. We do have that species here, that genus here, but it's not really carrying malaria. So there's no worries about malaria here, but we do have one case of West Nile, and it's the NID, neuroinvasive case. So what that is, that's basically it attacks your spinal cord. It's like flu-like symptoms. You may get headaches. There's no cure for it. You can get intravenous, get medical help. So what we do, we send mosquito specimen from high-level areas of high mosquitoes. We sent 102 specimen already to the lab in Louisiana here, and we get an arbovirus report I would send everybody. It shows that Caddo Parish is sending specimen out. And so if you do have standing water from the storms and things like that, feel free to call us at 318-226-6624. And we also, Everbridge system, you can go on caddo.org and you can sign up for mosquito spray as well. So just fight the bite. When you're outside, make sure you wear, mosquito repellent. Dump standing water, old flower plants with water, pet bowls, bird baths, anything that can harbor a mosquito larva before it pupaes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Lawrence Guidry, Caddo Community Action Agency.
Good evening. Lawrence Guidry, Caddo Community Action Agency. Come today to, thank you, Ken, for inviting me to be at this Public Safety Committee meeting on behalf of the Caddo Community Action Agency. We did not have any activity in this latest storm because we were out of power for several days ourselves. But normally, we have a situation where we have a gymnasium, there's air conditioning, and we use it as a shelter to house anyone who might need shelter. Right now, we are using it because it's the high heat, what have you out there. That's so we are using it at this time. With that said, of course, that's about all that I can report to this committee today.
And Mr. Guidry, if you would you look into, I think, what LAHEAP money?
LAHEAP money, well, that's a program that we do year-round. And of course, it's over 1,000 citizens get helped with that annually. So we are proud of that. And they pay their utility bills for twice a year for the citizens in that program. And we have 11 different programs over there, what have you, that we do. That's LAHEAP is just one of them. Of course, you all know about Head Start. And of course, we have LWOP, we have community programs, we have emergency aid, we have, in addition to emergency aid, we have the burial assistance program. This is by the parish. And those are the programs we tend to, and we audited annually by a Cook and Mohart CPA firm. So therefore, we have, and you all should be getting your audit books for the funds that you disperse to the agency. It should be in the mail this week.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Please remain in case we have some questions.
Okay.
Senator Barron Peacock, sir, could you give us anything as to what the state had done relative to the situation?
Commissioner, I wasn't prepared. I was invited by, come and listen, and I
Okay.
was prepared. I was not
Good.
aware that you wanted me to give
Okay.
you any information today. I'm
Okay.
glad to, gather questions from you and get that if you have to state, but I
Okay.
wasn't prepared, to request a copy of that.
That's fine. Well, one thing I'd like to ask, maybe if you can look into, I understand, I think that the state leases, the old, Sam's on Meriwether and Uella, and I think it's 2,400 beds. And I spoke with the gentleman from Baton Rouge on a teleconference call a little while back, and they stated, you know, it'd be nice if we had a big power generator down there, so that's something I'll be talking with you about.
I would like to probably address that more,
Oh.
since that's a evacuation center.
So,
Okay,
sorry, so yes, they are trying to get generators for some of these bus shelters, where they bus people to us. That shelter is in flux, so it was sold to the new owner. They're not sure whether that's going to remain a shelter for the state. That's why, even though we had done a lot of work to get a generator up here, they did not go ahead and hardwire it in because they didn't want to put it on a shelter that they weren't for sure was going to remain ours. But there are ways to see if we can get, if we know we have for sure a long-term.
right. Yes, I understand that. I think they're looking at another facility on Mansfield Road, but that's something that we think they need to do. They're gonna have a shelter, have
Have
a
a generator.
generator there.
Yes, sir.
Doesn't make no sense to have a shelter and you don't have a generator. Okay, thank you, ma'am. Representative Thomas Presley, anything you'd like to add, sir? You just listening? Or?
Good to be here.
All right, appreciate you being here. Providence House, Ms. Howard, is Ms. Howard in?
Good evening. Bernie Howard, Executive Director, Providence House. Providence House has been a partner with Caddo Commissioners in every situation that our city has really experienced, starting with Louisiana Emergency Rental Assistance. And our role really is to help the parish to vet those persons who are in need, to make sure that they meet the guidelines that have been established by the commission, and to make sure that the work is done properly, to make sure that we have staff to take those phone calls and people to ensure that the work has been done. And so we did that with Louisiana Emergency Rental Assistance, and we did the same thing with the storm, and we were very, very proud to partner with the parish. So the first thing that we did was we created an application in partnership with the commission so that we can make sure that the funds that were needed to repair weatherheads or tree debris removal or home repair, that we were asking those questions to make sure, again, that that the funding would get to the people who were most in need. And so we are still doing that to date. So our work has not ended, and we're very, very proud to do the work to make sure that people who need the services, people who need the repairs, that we are asking the right questions, number one. Number two, that we are vetting those applications. Number three, that we are ensuring the work is done, not paying an invoice, not sure that the work is done, that we are working with approved vendors, vendors that have been approved by the parish, but also vendors that have been approved to do this level of work, so that when we submit an application to the commission to be paid, we can say with 100% certainty that the funds are being used, the work was done, and that we pay, we're issuing or recommending the issuing issuance of those funds based on the per occurrence. So today, we are still doing that work. The calls have slowed down just a bit, but people are still calling, people are still needing assistance, and we are still in position. So we do have a designated staff just for this purpose, just to take those phone calls, just to vet. And then we have another staff member who not only ensures that the vendor's doing work, but also goes out to do site inspection. And again, we're proud to do that so that when we turn a file in to the commission, you have 100% assurance that it was done correctly, and it was done legally. And then we are also audited as well. So we have an on-site director of finance, we have an on-site CPA, and we have an external auditor, so that when we return information to you, you know that the numbers are clean and we have a clean process. So if there are questions, I'm happy to stay and answer
This
those
time,
questions.
if you would you give your contact information?
Absolutely. The phone number at Providence House, 318-221-7887 is our direct line. Bernie, V like Victory, E like Edward, R like Robert, N like Nancy, I like Ice, at theprovidencehouse.com is my direct email.
Okay, thank you. Please stay with us. Chief Mitchell, Fire District 3, anything you'd like to share with us?
I'm prepared to report anything, Commissioner.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, is Chief Smith here? Chief Smith, don't hide over there, I'm gonna call on you. Just want you to give us a report as, I know I got a lot of concerns, of course, you know, we over the rural areas, and the sheriff is the law enforcement authority there, and people was, you know, when the power was out, they stated that people was driving around through the neighborhoods and the alarm systems wasn't on and things of that nature, so. We just want to let the folks know that what you are doing, as well as the sheriff department, doing those situations to continue to keep our citizens safe.
Absolutely. To begin with, I want to say something that personally affects me to the commission. Thank you so very much for your attention to the needs of our people in the parish and also our citizens within the city. I want to thank everybody that has come before me, that has spoke. I can personally appeal to that has touched me and my family in one way or the other. Animal control, I see your folks out in my part of the parish, Keithville, spraying all the time. Thank you so much for what you do. As everyone well knows, crime is up within the city, and the chances are there's probably increases also in the parish. Generally, what happens in the city migrates to the parish and vice versa. Tragedy, criminals have no boundary. Throughout this entire pandemic and during this past storm, I can't thank the men and women of the Shreveport Police Department enough for coming to call to duty to do whatever extra is needed to make sure that our community is protected as best we can. I can recall numerous occasions when our duty lieutenants get on the phone and call officers who are off duty on their days off and ask them to come back to work extra shifts to make sure that our city is covered, and they do so without question. We have, over the past few weeks and few months, been in touch with all of our partners in public service, federal, state, and otherwise, have brought all of them to the table and asked what they could do to assist us during our difficult time. And everyone has offered whatever resources they have to the city and to the parish. There's a lot that I could speak of, but I don't want to, give our secrets away. That's going to be taking place for the remainder of the year. That's going to be affected in the city as well in the parish to make sure that our people are kept as safe as possible, and that those that are responsible for misery is brought to justice. And also those that are even thinking about being responsible for misery. We ain't left you out. We're going to be seeing you also. But thank all of you for your assistance. And, you know, it's our promise, our pledge to continue to work as hard as we can to make our city and our parish as safe as it could be. Our sheriff, we work continuously on a continuous basis, sharing our resources, both he bringing what resources he can into the city, and we sending whatever resources we can out into the parish. It's so wonderful, and most people don't know about, we have reciprocal agreements between all of us who are in public service, because your taxpayers' resources go to support us all. If Bossier City has something that I need, I call the Bossier Police Chief and says, I need your help, and he is coming. If the sheriff has something that I need, which is very often, I call the sheriff directly himself and say, I need your help, and they're coming. And vice versa, if they need me, then I'm coming with all the resources that I can, because everybody in our community, their safety matters.
Thank you, sir. Please stay with us.
Yes, sir.
Okay. While our next speaker is coming up, I want to represent my partner out there, Barbara Norton, former Rep. Norton. I heard your shoe giveaway was successful as usual. Appreciate you. Keep on keeping on doing the good work. Yes, ma'am. Name and the organization you represent.
Sir. Nika Eccles with AT&T. My address is 7131 St. Vincent Avenue. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for coordinating this conversation and especially for inviting us as well to participate. Over the years, we have seen repeated examples of the value in collaboration between our various internal teams at AT&T, community organizations, local officials, state officials, and many others. Without question, we have seen the value of collaboration right here in Caddo Parish on many occasions over the years, including following the recent storm. In fact, following the storm, AT&T staff stayed in contact with the sheriff, Caddo Office of Homeland Security, Emergency Preparedness, key staff at the city and commission, and other elected officials. That communication was important to us as we worked alongside other agencies to restore service. Important to AT&T's readiness for storms are our continued investments. From 2020 to 2022, AT&T invested more than $1.3 billion in wired and wireless networks in Louisiana. Last year alone, our wireless team activated more than 200 new mobility sites, both small cells and macro sites in Louisiana. They also completed more than 1,000 upgrades at existing sites across the state. That work is critical to helping give our residents and first responders faster and more reliable wireless service and expanding and enhancing 5G availability across the state. The work of our 3,100 employees who live and work in Louisiana communities is critical to emergency preparedness, and I would like to touch on just a few ways that AT&T stays prepared. AT&T is committed to providing reliable communications before, during, and after any storm or natural disaster. We have a team of meteorologists who help monitor our networks 24/7 and can deploy resources to a disaster area very quickly. We have one of the industry's largest and most advanced disaster response programs to help keep wireless and wireline communications running during times of disaster. Before storms, our teams boost network capacity to accommodate increased call volumes, maintain and top off existing generators with fuel at different cell sites and switch facilities, stage additional generators in safe locations for immediate deployment once a storm has passed. AT&T's National Disaster Response Team maintains a stage of fleet and equipment at more than 20 warehouses and staging yards, allowing for a rapid response within the state. Our NDR fleet of equipment includes hundreds of technology recovery and support trailers that can be quickly deployed. A sample of NDR assets includes SAT codes, mobile command centers, compact rapid deployables, amphibious vehicles, mobile bunkhouses, and much more. Following this recent storm, which impacted Caddo Parish, AT&T established a staging location at our office on D Street in Shreve City, from which we deployed generators and other assets to ensure the stability of our wireless and wireline services, which are dependent on commercial power. In short, our teams are trained, experienced, and prepared to act swiftly to respond to storm events and help restore communities quickly, as we saw this in action this summer following the storm here in Caddo Parish. Thank you all again for inviting us to speak today and for your time. I'll be available for any questions.
Okay,
Thank you.
Don't want you all to think we were being partial. We had the police chief here. Mr. Clerk, we did invite the Sheriff Department, Homeland Security. Did you get any response?
We did, and they were unable to come. We did, and they were unable to come due to a prior engagement, but they did express their support and express that they would follow up on what we discussed here today.
Okay, all right, we thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, everyone. I'm Madison Poche from the Highland Center. So I just wanted, we are a community center and nonprofit office center in the Highland neighborhood. So I think, as hopefully as some of you know, we were able to stand up the first shelter and cooling center for basically the first 72 hours immediately following the disaster. Luckily, we had been in conversations with Robert Jump and Red Cross and many of you up to that point discussing what it would be like if we ever had to do this. So the transition was, I think, as smooth as it could be for our first time operating a community shelter. So Red Cross set up the cots and check-in procedure, and our team continued to run our facility. We ended up with about, I would say, an average of 100 people a day coming through, and then about 40 people a night spending the night, which felt like a lot busier during the day than just those numbers. But a lot of those individuals were, I think, people who were having the toughest time, right? We had one woman who had agoraphobia, who hadn't left her home in months, but was couldn't open her windows because they were painted shut, right? We had grandparents who were watching 7 grandkids who needed a place to go. So I was really happy that we were able to kind of provide that, I would say, lowest level of care to neighbors. We had really people to show up and step in times that I had not considered. So we had someone donate probably 50 casseroles that were going to go bad from someone else's freezer. So we had hot breakfast, lunch, and dinner from our commercial kitchen. We had kids' games and activities all day. We have a little computer lab that had Wi-Fi, so everyone was able to charge their devices. Caddo Parish brought water every time I needed it. We had snacks from partners. Dr. White provided oxygen exchange. And then the Red Cross helped us with medical referrals. So we had a few people who had minor medical questions. What do I do if my insulin is not out? I'm feeling a little bit faint and overwhelmed. So being able to call, I think it was Nurse Jackie from the Red Cross helped to resolve a lot of those issues before they got more serious. And then when Morning Star was prepared to operate as a shelter, we wound down our center and transitioned into just being a cooling center and transported everyone who still needed overnight shelter at that time to Morning Star Baptist Church. I believe they operated for at least another 10 days. And so it was wonderful to have that partnership in place where we were able to meet the needs based on our capacity. And Then I also wanted to mention that our partners with the North Louisiana Interfaith Coalition also sent out about 100,000 text messages asking just individuals around Shreveport and Caddo, do you know where your nearest cooling center is? Do you have any critical needs? And they got about 4,000 responses back, and a lot of those were significant. So they coded each one by priorities and called through or went door to door to deliver ice or food supplies, or just help to communicate with people who had kind of sometimes fallen through the cracks when you don't have TV or you're not on Facebook and don't always know exactly what's going on. And then I also just wanted to underline that about a week before, the Caddo Parish Commission had approved funding for a solar power, a battery backup, and water backup plan for these two locations as a pilot project. So, hopefully, if we're standing here this time next year, if our two spots weren't as lucky and lose power, we would have the capacity to continue to operate smoothly as we get better at what we're doing and continue to be kind of the lowest level of care for our neighbors in need. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone here from the Red Cross? Red Cross. Mr. Clerk, did you hear anything from Red Cross?
I believe we did get a response from the Red Cross representative.
Sorry, I believe we did get a response from the Red Cross representative, but I don't know that I see anybody from there. But we did receive a response accepting the invitation.
Okay. Comcast, anyone from Comcast? Want to get the internet people, because I know I got a lot of calls about the internet, AT&T, and so we try to invite everybody where they can speak for themselves. Did I miss anyone? Anyone out in the audience? Pardon? Well, I'm going to get the parish last. Anyone else out in the audience? Okay. At this time, I'll go to the parish administration, and they will give us an update as to how we responded relative to the storm.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Commissioners. Caddo Parish worked in collaboration with representatives from Homeland Security, the City of Shreveport, SWEPCO, and other local leaders to respond to the issues that arose with the June 16th storm. The Commission President and Vice President, along with myself, the Assistant Administrator, and the Communications Manager, met daily to address any issues that we could. We had press conferences at the end of each of those meetings. We prepared press releases to go out to inform the citizens of what methods we were taking to address the storm issues. We coordinated ice distributions. We helped with coordinate the cooling centers, debris removal, clearing the roads. Our public works crews were out daily, clearing the roads, working around the clock so that there was access, so SWEPCO can get in there and start addressing, restoring the electricity to our citizens. We are also continuing with that debris removal for debris that's placed in a right-of-way on public roads outside the city limits of Shreveport. We cannot work on private roads. The parish coordinated efforts to address immediate needs by working with Providence House as well as the food bank to address electrical repairs as well as home repairs, tree removals, food distributions, whatever we could to help. We communicated with the commissioners. All of you all wanted to address the needs of the commission. You made emergency appropriations in order so that we can have what we needed in order to have supplies available, food available, address any repair needs. We continue to address concerns of our citizens. They contact us and we respond as best we could. The parish is prepared. Our employees, our departments are prepared. We have a plan of action to respond when there are storm events. And so want to just recognize those employees that put forth the effort to help us address the citizens in their time of need. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Bryant, would you address the gentleman's issue? I'd like to hear. I didn't understand what that was.
If I'm not mistaken, that is an area that is private roads.
Okay, so
And
that's
so
private.
Private.
We
yes.
cannot.
It's
okay,
not
so-
a matter of a HOA. It's a matter of owning those roads. Those are not public roads that we are allowed to assist. We did assist in clearing to make access, but the debris removal, since that is private,
It's a private road, and not because an HOA.
it's not
'Cause I
because
know
it's
there's
an
several
HOA. We have
HOAs in my
several
district.
HOAs, but they're not.
But they on public streets.
Yes.
Okay. Sir, does that answer your question? Okay, if not, we'll get back with you after the meeting, okay?
But yeah,
Well,
we
just
will,
want the facts to get out.
we will have dialogue to see if there's any mechanism we can develop to assist those residents.
Okay, all right. What I'd like to do at this time, I think we had one digital comment, and I'd like for the clerk to read that into the record. And after that, I would like to give each committed person 2 minutes each if they would like to make a comment. And after that, we have Q&A from the audience, and we'll be wrapping.
And I'm sorry, Commissioner, we also did receive, in addition to the comment that we received, we did receive a little bit more information from Robert Jump on his, when he expressed that he wasn't going to be able to be here in person. He did share a little bit of information. Would you like me to share that?
Yeah, right, meeting the FEMA threshold, and, right, we need to share that. Okay.
Great, okay. So he did say that Caddo Parish did not qualify for the FEMA individual assistance threshold. However, we did, as a parish, reach the threshold for the Small Business Administration to offer their services, and the details surrounding those operations will be finalized in the next couple of days, hopefully by the end of this week.
Okay.
So there should be more information on that forthcoming. The public comment that was received came from Ms. Joyce Rogers, and it reads, would you like me to just go ahead and read it into the record?
Yes, sir.
Okay. It reads, first and foremost, I would like to commend the power companies from surrounding areas that assisted in restoring power to the city and Caddo Parish. I know they provided a very necessary service. I also commend District 12 Commissioner and any other officials who did their jobs and gave tirelessly to assist their constituents. However, my concern is that not only have the outages occurred too frequently, but also too frequently in the same communities. I have resided in my community for more than 25 years, and these outages have occurred for more than 25 years. This should not be. I have contacted AEP SWEPCO for many years in the same issue, no power. I recalled one time in particular, there were several others, but I remember the family hovered around the fireplace in the cold and in the dark of winter. Thank God we had a gas fireplace. I would think that after more than 25 years, improvements would have been made. Sadly enough, the situation has worsened. See, I don't believe that everyone loses power every time there's an outage. And if perchance they do, the time of the outage is relatively short and seemingly they are the first to be restored. Persons south of I-20 lost power for about 2 days during the last storm outage. I live north of I-20 and my power was off for 5 days. Even with the rationale that there is a system as to who is restored first, perhaps the policy or protocol needs to be revisited. As it stands, it now appears that certain communities who are first to lose power are consistently the last or near last to be restored. AEP SWEPCO has adequate time to make adjustments with these outages. Whatever the problems are, by now they should not be the same ones that have existed for all these years. The problem lies with AEP SWEPCO. We communicate with neighbors in various communities, and generally we know who has and doesn't have power. It needs to change. During this last storm and power outage, I took the opportunity to drive through certain communities. I can't imagine how persons are able to go on while living in such deplorable conditions. There's not been any noticeable government assistance provided in these black communities. Trees from the last major storm are still in their yards. They have not been collected as debris. They are uprooted and the roots are larger than some cars. Who can live with any semblance of dignity and/or community life under these conditions? Inhabited dwellings are surrounded with blighted property. Where is the money for these cleanups? Where are the federal dollars? What does the city do to assist these communities? We are losing communities to unkempt streets. We do understand that environment plays a crucial role in mental illness. Since mental illness is the buzz government needs to come to the aid of these communities. Government is ordained by God, and there is an accountability for when we fail to do our job. In closing, government also needs to address the issue with AEP SWIPCO. And again, that's from Joyce Rogers, 6310 Ironwood Circle.
Thank you, sir. At this time, we will have 2-minute comments from committee persons, starting with Mr. Atkins, Ms. Watts, and then we'll go down the line.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
There we go. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to reach out to Mr. Weaver and his team and thank you all for your hard work during this time of recovery. I know y'all got on it quickly, ensured that we had emergency access, and we're working day and night to make sure our roads were clear and open, and y'all did a wonderful job. So thank you for what you've done to date and your continued efforts moving forward. Both want to thank you and your whole team. And I'd also like to thank AEP SWEPCO. You know, we don't always appreciate power until we don't have it. We don't always appreciate many things until we don't have it. You know, AEP SWEPCO had a real challenge on their hands, and I recognize the complexity of that challenge. And I think given the circumstances, you all did a wonderful job. You have a dedicated team that works relentlessly to ensure that as many of us as possible can have power as soon as possible. I know you can't wave a magic wand and get everything done at once, but we sure appreciate the efforts that you all put in, and thank you for looking after your customers and our citizens. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Watts?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, let me say thank you, Commissioner Everson, for hosting this meeting on this evening. It's always important for us to talk about what went well, what we could do different, and moving forward for the next catastrophe. I would also like to thank each entity that has represented your organizations. I spoke to many of you on a lot of occasions during this, and I really thank you for always being attentive in answering those calls on behalf of my constituents. I wanted to just touch on a few things that was said, and the first one is with SWEPCO, Mr. Carbon. And I know that we're still having a lot of power outages, and if you have anything that you could share publicly on where we are with the infrastructure improvement. I know you said that there's going to be a 5-year rolling plan. So is there a public plan that you could share, or is it internal?
We have had for a number of years a 5-year plan, and we revise it as needed. And you're right, we've still had some outages. We talked about an outage that happened over the weekend. And,
Right.
you know, when there's a storm, people can understand an outage. When it's a blue sky day, it gets a little more complicated. If you drive around town, especially in the heavily treed neighborhoods that we all cherish so much, and you look up in the trees, there are dead limbs everywhere. And every time we get a bit of wind or gravity takes over, those limbs are still falling, and they will probably continue to fall. Some of them are in the vicinity of power lines, some are going to fall in yards or houses, some will fall on streets. But there's a number of things that continue to cause outages.
Right.
With the heat, we're seeing some equipment failure on occasion. And cars have not been our friend recently as well, with cars hitting poles and creating outages. But you know, we are continually working to improve both our distribution and transmission circuits, and you know, we're working on that daily.
Okay, thank you. My next question is there a tree cutting program available?
Yes, we do. We present a forestry program yearly. We go to the Public Service Commission for approval of those funds. Sometimes they're approved at what we ask, sometimes not. But we are consistently trimming trees. As a matter of fact, we're trimming with a helicopter in East Texas the day before the June 16th storm hit, and had to cease operations. But I think it's worth noting that we talk about tree trimming a lot, and in some of our internal conversations, it's like the day after the storm would have been a great day to go out and start trimming additional trees. Because if we're in a neighborhood a week from now, a month from now, and we start trimming trees, they're going to call their parish commissioner, they're going to call their city council member and say, I don't want my trees cut. People have short memories and they love their trees. And I wish I had come up with this statement, but I didn't. I'll have to tell you that our president did, SWEPCO president, but I'm using it liberally. Anytime you look at a power line and there's a tree under it or growing into it, somebody planted that tree there. We don't build power lines over trees. We don't build power lines beside trees because we clear that right away. So there's some customer and citizen responsibility as well. All too often in the older, more mature neighborhoods where utility lines are run on the rear of the property, we come in to clear that right of way, which is an established right of way. And people have moved their gardens into the right of way. They've planted trees, and they will not allow us to trim them. So trees are an ongoing problem, and it's largely because we have such a heavy tree foliage here in Shreveport and Caddo Parish.
Well, Mr. Corbin, because those gardens or whatever they may place in that area, don't you legally have the rights to the right-of-ways?
It is an established right-of-way. It's very difficult to convince a citizen that that is an established right-of-way. I will tell you that we have found portable buildings built on top of some of our transformers. We have a issue that we're dealing with currently in a neighborhood where we're about to replace a transmission line, and someone, without getting a permit evidently, has built a number of structures directly underneath the high voltage transmission line and in an established right of way. So it's not uncommon that does happen.
Right. I'm sorry. And this is my last one. I know we just had 2 minutes. But the AMI meters that you're talking about in the replacement, do you need a resolution of support from us, or is that looking like a conversation that is going to move forward? Or
We believe it's going to move forward, but if we run into some roadblocks, I certainly appreciate that offer, and I may be right back up here asking for a resolution of support.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Corbin. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Compton?
I'm sorry, we share mics. I forgot.
First of all, I would like to thank the entire staff, parish and city, for their activities during this particular storm that we went through, and especially the men and women that recovered our power as soon as they could. My question, a couple of questions, and they're somewhat rhetorical, is first of all, what do we learn and how do we improve upon it? The thing is that, everything is done in technology via internet, things of this nature, but we have a lot of senior citizens out there that don't necessarily have the technology or do not, particularly during the storm, was not able to receive information. So how do we let them know the improvements that's being worked upon? And also, lastly, I would share with you, we still have people that are hurting. There's still some people out there that are truly hurting, that cannot get those items out of their yard, off of their house, off the power lines, whatever the case might be. And those are the ones that we really need to be looking at. And I would ask each and every citizens to let their particular representatives seated here or in the city know what is it that we can do to assist those people, particularly the elderly and the disabled. So please, 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 as we possibly terminate this particular session, let's not think that everything has been worked out. Let's not think that everything is done. Let's remember the one thing I always try to live by, and it says, if you did it for the least of them, you also did it unto me. Thank you.
Mr. Chavez?
Thank you, Commissioner. I'm going to say my thank yous because so many people that are in the audience did so many great things. One person that's not out here, one specific entity is the Shreveport Volunteer Network. They did an amazing job throughout the entire storm, throughout the entire month, really doing work for free. I couldn't tell you how many people they helped. And they made a big impact. One thing that I really like that the Shreveport Volunteer Network did, though, is you can download the Shreveport Volunteer Network mobile app, and you can actually request assistance from their mobile app, and you can request to volunteer. They've created a very seamless way to send the help and to accept the help, and I like that. And that alludes me to the question on Director brought up Everbridge. And I know we've started using it, but I don't think that we have really a means for mass communication on pushing out information and receiving information. And I believe that's what Everbridge was supposed to do, is bridge that gap. Can you talk on that for a minute, on why we're not really rolling it out and letting the people know about it?
Commissioner, when we first enrolled in Everbridge, we did a push out, a major push out. We after this event, we're planning on doing another marketing campaign in order to get, it is a mass communication system. If you're enrolled in it, I'm enrolled in it, I get the heat wave notices, I get the mosquito, because mosquitoes I get those notices, I get the weather events. So it is a mass communication notice. Even during the event, they said, hey, do you need a cooling center? Here are the cooling centers. So that information is just that we don't have enough citizens enrolled in that program. And that's what we need. We need to increase the number of citizens. I would like to say that we feel, collaboration is important doing events like these, and we will continue to collaborate with our other government agencies and not-for-profits. We are coordinating an after-event meeting with those partners so that we can be prepared to address issues like, how do we get more people enrolled in Everbridge? How do we address the communication barrier with our seniors? How do we when we're doing ice distribution, how do we get ice to those persons who just can't come get ice? How do we get food to those persons who can't come drive up and pick up food? What will we do in the future to address those kind of concerns that are difficult in the throes of it? So we are coordinating a meeting to address that. We have it on our list of things to do to try to get more citizens enrolled in the Everbridge program. I think it is a wonderful communication tool. I use it myself. It even notified me when my kids were home alone and they said tornado is in your area, it's imminent, and I was able to call them. I wasn't there. I'm able to call them and say, y'all need to take cover. And so I think it's important for us to get that out to our citizens.
I know Commissioner Watt's been screaming from the rooftops about tornado sirens for, I think, the last 8 years I've been here. So this would definitely be a digital piece to go alongside with what you want. We have great PR staff. I see her sitting over there. I think we need to maybe work on some more PSAs and really getting that out to the public. Yes, but now we know what we need.
I'll let Ms. Beecham address some of those concerns.
Mike, I'm sorry. No, you brought up an excellent point, Commissioner, and one of the things that we realized in this storm especially, that we didn't have as many people signed up for certain parts of Everbridge as we thought. So as Administrator Bryant said, we are working collaboratively with all of the other agencies to do a multi-agency campaign for Everbridge, because we realize that so many of our agencies are using Everbridge for different things, that harnessing all of that power together and doing a big campaign to help citizens understand that Everbridge touches all of your major government agencies, police, fire, city, parish. So we are working to do a bigger collaborative campaign. So we're not just advertising in silos, doing something big that all the citizens can see.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you, guys.
Thank you, Chris.
Maria?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'm okay.
Do we need to declare an emergency here? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As president of the commission, I want to thank all of you for your commitment to helping to mitigate this emergency that we're in. Many citizens, in which I did not know myself, that the parish is over emergency preparedness. And we had to take a leadership role in bringing all of these individuals and sources together. I didn't know as president that I had to work toward bringing them together, but because of my colleagues who has been in this situation before, they told me that you needed to bring those entities together, and we did at the EOC Center, or the Emergency Operations Center. And Mr. Robert Jump, who was there, he actually commended us on the fact that they needed to have come together because they were actually, they had individual responsibility, but they were overlapping. So by bringing them together, we were able to streamline, and certain people did certain things. So I thought that that was something that came out of this emergency situation. I want to also especially thank SWEPCO. As you know, I used to be a public utility man myself, so I've worked with the power company over the years. And we've thanked them and we've cursed them out for various reasons because we thought that, certain things should be done a certain way, but they did a yeoman's job in putting us back into service. And I'm very appreciative to that, especially Mike Colvin, who was on the hot seat most of the time that we were there at the emergency center, bringing us updated reports. I guess being a utility person myself too, broadband has been an issue because really broadband has become part of the emergency services that we have, and we need them. As you heard here, some of our senior citizens can get online, and then we had AT&T. I used to be an AT&T person for 22 years, so I know a little bit about providing services, and when people want their telephones to work, they want them to work. So from that perspective, I'm going to, and being a state legislator myself, I see our senators out there, and I saw Representative Presley, who was there. I'm asking them if they would maybe inquire, let's put it that way. I've been asking for the people who are supposed to be deploying broadband in our parish to come before us, and Comcast has come before us, and we've had some input from AT&T, but we need an update on where they are because we need to get those facilities out there, because in the case of emergency like this, we need those services. We have one company that has got the gumbo grant, and we haven't heard from them yet, and we've asked and had the administration to ask them to come before us and tell us where they are. We have not seen them. And if they got the money, they need to come and let us know because they are responsible for deploying broadband in Caddo Parish. So, Mr. Senator, my former colleague, if you can put that on your agenda and maybe see where that comes, what you call it, CSC?
CSC Holdings.
CSC Holdings?
CSC Holdings, and certainly I'll follow up with an email for.
Commissioner, I would say if y'all have contacted with the gumbo, I would need help from who you have contracted with for that. I cannot, that seems like a parish issue, but I'm glad to ask the state to give you an update on the gumbo.
Well, it's a parish issue.
Sir, if you're going to speak, could you come forward so we can record it? Because we want this
Commissioner-
archive information.
Well,
We have received an update, so we can give you that today.
so since the meeting a day ago?
Yes.
Okay. Well, it seemed like we've got a little update, but that's been only a day. And we've been looking for it for months.
It's a reason why, but I'll let Assistant Administrator Walker address that if you.
Okay, because that's a sore spot with me, especially broadband.
And Madam Administrator, now, tomorrow is commission meeting, right? I think we need to stay focused on the public service, and we can get that information tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because I always like to have a timely and a punctual meeting so people don't get bored and we get off track.
That's perfectly fine, but I did want you to know, we have an update and we'll give it to you tomorrow at the commission.
Well, the only reason I brought it up is part of public safety now,
It is.
and it
So
should
we
be.
we will provide that update tomorrow. at the
Okay,
commission.
all right. Mr. Chairman, those are the two things that was burning heavily on me, and I think that we did a fine job in getting things at least to this point. We still have some issues. I know through Queensboro in my district, we still have a lot of trees to pick up and debris. And I did see some contractors out doing some things. So, and since we are in the urban centers and not out in the rural, sometimes they think that, we are parish commissioners, we are part of the parish too, although we are urban commissioners. And the people still ask me, matter of fact, today they asked me about it, and because they don't know the difference between the parish commissioner or the city councilman. So since I was a city councilman, they still inquire from me, hopefully thinking that I'm tied with the city. But anyway, I appreciate it all. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. At this time, I would like to let everyone know that, of course, most of our commissioners have urban districts in their district too. And Mr. Clerk, we did invite the mayor's office and all the council persons, right? That's why we invited the chief, because my district is 60% rural and 40% urban. So we want to take care of everybody. No one is omitted. Now, at this time, are there any questions or comments from any persons in the audience? Any citizen that would have a question? Okay, or comment? All right, if not, I'm going to get ready to close. First of all, I would like to remind you that we do have some handouts for those of you that came representing homeowners associations or citizen groups, neighborhoods. Please pick up this handout that has some very valuable information on it. Also, if your questions weren't answered today, we have an information sheet. We'd like for you to get this, fill it out. Not only today, you can take it home with you, give it to your neighbors, and have them to submit it to us. Now, what I've heard here today, we are not here finger pointing. I think it's been a very productive meeting. We are here fact finding and listening. I don't care what you do or how long you have been doing it, there's still room for improvement. And if you don't get together as a group and everybody put on the table what was done back then, what's done now, what are our plans for the future? Everyone needs to be involved in this situation. So this particular committee that I'm over is not just going to be here for window dressing. We are going to work. Excuses is not an option for me. So at this time, Mr. Clerk, would you look on your calendar? I would like to schedule a public safety ad hoc committee meeting for 2:00 p.m. at our second work session in August.
That would be August 14th at 2:00 p.m.
Okay, that's good, that's clear?
I know that there were, yes, I believe it is. There was a meeting scheduled for the 15th, but I don't have something scheduled for the 14th at this time.
Okay, so everyone here tonight, if you would like to, all these meetings are public. You're welcome to come and attend those meetings. What we have heard here today, we transcribing it. It's archived on video. We want you to go back and share with your neighbors. They can log on to the commission website and you can play this meeting in its entirety. Any other questions or concerns you have relative to the charge that we are here today for, please submit them to jeverson@caddo.org, jeverson@caddo.org, and we will address them at that appropriate time. So hearing or seeing no other further business before this body, I declare the meeting adjourned. What was that?